Hello, so this is going to be a video on UK self-defence items, and it was partially inspired by Weapon Collector's video, and he did a top 10 UK self-defence items video. And that was quite good, and they were legal self-defence items. That's sort of what I'm going to go into in this video. This is a subject I've talked about quite a bit before, but these videos always seem to be popular and sometimes controversial, which is basically kind of what you want when you're making a video. So, what I'm going to do in this is I'm going to cover several points. And a point I want to go over initially is there's kind of two types of self-defense. There's sort of passive self-defense where you know, you're not going to really hurt anybody else, but the point is of the self-defense item that it's going to protect you, or like your behaviour is going to protect you. And then you have like the more, I'd say, aggressive or overt self-defense, which is where, you know, you're taking active measures that might harm somebody else but to protect you. So it's important to realise there's two kinds of self-defense, because some people don't like the idea of using one or the other, whereas I'd say they're equally as valuable. You just have to know when to use them. But the thing I would say is passive self-defense items are very good in regards of probably keeping you out of trouble. Because I mean, I think one of the worst things is obviously, and I definitely don't agree with laws like this, but you have to accept they're sort of there, is if you were attacked and you use something in self-defense and then you end up with a much more serious sort of criminal sort of prosecution against you because you did that, that's not good at all. I don't think it's right really in any country that if somebody is attacked and they defend themselves, they might, you know, get into more trouble than the attacker or whatever, but you have to understand that's sometimes a reality. So that's why I think passive self-defense items are very good in that regard, that it'd be very hard to be prosecuted for using them, you know, for self-defense. So Weapon Collector's video had a load of different items in. Some I'd say were passive, so I'd say some were more aggressive. This video is just going to cover a couple of the ones he mentioned. What I'm also going to have in here is the bump cap as well as the body armour. So under here I've got the body armour on. Now I've mentioned this with the body armour before, but I've got an overt vest, which is the ones that are meant to be worn over clothing and be visible. So it's not the best vest for hiding under things, but you can still do it, as you can probably see. It makes you look a bit chunkier, but unless somebody knows you really well, they're not going to know you've got a vest on if it's being worn under, you know, a big coat or something, or a jacket. They're just, most people just assume you look a little bit fat or a bit chunky, whatever. So that's fine. I'd always advise you to have a vest on that people don't know you're wearing. You know, with like security guards and cash carriers, they might be obviously wearing the vest over the top for obvious reasons, to sort of show that they're an authority figure kind of thing. But with like you wearing a vest, you don't really want it to draw any attention. You just want it to be there to protect you if need be. So if, depending on how much you want to spend, you can get vests that go under your clothes. That, I think they're called covert vests, as opposed to what I've got, which is an overt vest. But the good thing is my overt vest isn't too chunky. Now, the cheapest way to always get these vests, at least in the UK, is by the ex-police ones, because basically they have lots of sort of health and safety kind of laws about how long they're allowed to keep a Kevlar or a stab-proof vest in service. Then once that time period's out, they have to basically dispose of it or sell it. So they often sell things that are in really good condition. It's just technically they have to buy a new vest in. And I've been over before that generally 99% of the time buying a second-hand one is going to be good enough, and if you're only using it as a precaution, that should be fine. Especially if it comes down to the choice of you can afford to buy a second-hand vest or you can't afford one at all. The second-hand vest that's going to protect you from 99% of the things that a brand new one would is the obvious choice to go for. You always get somebody that will try and argue the point that, you know, oh, if your life's depending on it, you should buy the most expensive vest. Well, for some people then they just can't afford a vest. When it's the difference between about £40 for a second-hand vest in excellent condition with a front and back Kevlar panel, compared to £300 to £400 for the exact same vest in a new condition. You know, getting the one that's like 10% of the price is the obvious choice for people who may not even need it. So, I'm not going to get into an argument on that. So the bump cap, obviously discreet thing that just gives you a bit of head protection because it's got, you know, a bit of firm plastic and foam inside the cap. As I said before, designed to stop you banging your head on things and hurting yourself, but they would definitely also work if you're wandering around, just to give you a bit of extra head protection in case you were attacked. Another bit of passive protection. So some of these items may be, you know, sort of going between the two. They could work as both passive or aggressive self-defense. Now, another thing Weapon Collector brought up before I go any further into the video, he said this is his #1 point, and I would definitely agree with him, is that what you need to do is you need to be smart, and you need to not get yourself into a situation, if you can, where you need to use an item in self-defense or whatever. Now, I've spoken about that before, but I think it's always true. Now, there will of course be situations where there's nothing you can do and you may be attacked, somebody may try and mug you, whatever. But there's lots of things you can do to, prevent people attacking you. Now, I'm sure there's some very good YouTube videos that go into a lot of detail in that, but for the most part it's, avoid dodgy areas, avoid people that look a bit shifty, especially groups of people if you're out on your own and it's dark. Walk at a decent speed, and things like that. It's basically don't put yourself in danger. There's lots of common things. Don't flash about your mobile phone or jewellery if you're in a slightly, dark and dodgy area, because then you're making yourself a target for somebody who might be thinking about mugging somebody or whatever else. So those, I'd say, were sensible bits of advice. And it's always the one that some people laugh at, but it's very true, is if you can run away, run away. Because if you run away and you're not harmed, there's the main thing, you've not been harmed, and you're not going to face any legal action, are you, for what happens. Whereas if you end up getting forced into a fight, you could be seriously harmed or killed, and again, you could face really serious legal consequences if you end up really harming or killing the person that attacks you in lots of, countries, sadly. Because even though they've been the one that attacked you, you may be the one that gets in serious trouble if they come out worse of the encounter. So I'd say, yeah, always have a plan to, be able to get out of there. Always pay attention to where exits are if you're in a building. Pay attention to who's around you and things like that. So just be smart, and then that's going to prevent a lot of problems. Also, what gets brought up in all these videos, and like I said, I'm on the fence about this, is people saying they know certain martial arts, so that would be okay. So the way I look at it, if you know certain martial arts, that's certainly better than not knowing them if you do get into a fight, or are forced to be into a fight. However, you don't overestimate your own abilities. I have seen lots of videos online, and I'm obviously not going to link them because this is YouTube and this isn't the platform which take kindly to this, where people who are obviously very skilled at martial arts or boxing or whatever get into some sort of fight with a mugger and they end up getting stabbed to death or whatever else, because while they are technically the better fighter, the other person is armed with a weapon. And at that stage, your martial arts aren't going to do a lot of stuff. You're not going to be like Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan in some sort of martial arts film where you've got a dozen attackers coming at you. You're knocking the weapons out of all their hands and beating them up. In reality, you're probably just going to be stabbed to death, or, horribly injured or whatever else, because, you didn't take the opportunity to back down or get away from a fight before it occurred. So anyway, let's go over some of the other items other than the vests and the hat, and have a look at them. One of the interesting items that was recommended is one of these sort of aluminium or steel water bottles. And basically what these are is just a regular drinking water bottle. I think this one's about 700 or 800 millilitres. You unscrew it, it's a bit like a thermos flask, but it's not a thermos one, there's nothing inside that will break. Inside I've got nice cold water. However, the advantage of one of these is that if you hold it like this, especially if it's full of water, you've basically got a little bat. Now, obviously this definitely goes on to the more aggressive side of self-defense, so only use it if you really had to. But something like this you could have clipped to your bag or, like your belt or something to carry around with you. The only thing I don't like about these is the water sloshes around inside when they're not totally full or empty. So bear in mind that they can be a bit annoying sound-wise, but obviously it's a good item to have. If you're going to have a canteen, something like this is a good one if you're planning, that you might have to use it in a self-defense scenario. Smaller, like plastic water bottles, aren't going to really be any good if, you need to actually use it to try and hit somebody and run away. Also, a very important thing of the law in the UK, and this might apply to a lot of other countries, is if you ever question why you own something, you don't have it for self-defense, you have it because it's got a practical purpose. Like, this is a water bottle, so I can drink water from it. You don't say, oh, I've got this in case I need to hit somebody with it, because then you're going to get arrested, or, they're going to be very suspicious of you. This is quite a good bottle, so if you wanted to know the brand of it, it's Sahara Sailor. I don't know if it's just a generic one with that printed on, but just so if you're looking for one, this is a good one. I've had this for maybe a year, if not a few months. And I've had no problem with it leaking. I use it basically daily as a water canteen. I definitely prefer having a metal one than a plastic one taste-wise with the water. It makes a good seal at the top. I've had no leakage even when I've done stuff like that with it, so as far as I can tell, everything's good in that regard. But yeah, as said, a canteen like this could be used as a last resort scenario as a bat, but you know, not that you want to get into a situation like that, but you could do that. Okay, a very popular one that lots of people find controversial: a tactical pen or a good stainless steel, or metal pen. Now, a tactical pen is basically a conventional writing pen, ballpoint pen. However, it normally has one end or a bit covered up that's a glass breaker. So in an emergency scenario, and a very good idea is if you have this in your pocket and you're in a car, if the car crashes, you can actually use this to break the windows to get out. These break glass super easily. You only have to do like that with it, not much speed to break glass. However, if you were attacked, having something like this which you can strike with gives you a lot more force, than not having it. But as said, I think even a very good, high quality, heavy stainless steel pen would do the same job. And nobody can really question why you've got a pen on you. You've got it because it's a writing pen and it's a useful everyday carry piece of kit. It's a pen. But yeah, some people are like, oh, if you use that you go to prison. Well, I don't see, there's nothing in the UK law that says you can't have tactical pens. Maybe if you're asked what it is, don't say it's a tactical pen, just say it's, an emergency pen that's got a glass breaker on it in case you're in a car accident or something like that. Don't make it sound like it's a dangerous piece of kit, because for the most part it isn't. How many people have I hit with this in since I bought this last December or January? Nobody. How many times have I used it to write and do stuff? I use it nearly every day, so there you go. They're refillable, they're very good. So, again, I don't have any nasty purposes with it. It's just a conventional writing pen, but, it actually has other features if you needed them. Now, the last one I'm going to include on this list, and probably one of my favourites, is a flashlight or a torch. Now, you can get, it's really good on the market at the moment for brighter and brighter, torches with more functions, high quality builds, getting cheaper and cheaper. Ones like this are often only about £5 or £6 on Amazon. These ones can actually take several different types of batteries, which is cool, without really modifying the torch. They normally come with a thing where you can put 3 AAA batteries in it and it will work. I've got it set up with an 18650 battery, which doesn't quite fill the entire back, as you can see. It's got like this plastic sleeve to keep it in place, and there's like one bigger type of battery you can put in. In theory, if you use the biggest type of battery, that would be the best thing, because that would mean that you'd get the most probably life out of the battery and probably a slightly higher voltage output, so slightly brighter flashlight. But the point is that these torches are really good for cheap ones, because you can get them very cheaply. They take several types of batteries, they're nice and bright, Cree LED, they're zoomable, so it means that you can, what I really like about these, let's say you're walking along a dark path at night, you can zoom the torch out to, it's going to be hard to actually obviously demonstrate, maybe I can show you on the curtain, but not very well. You can walk around with it fully zoomed out if you needed to. Then if you were wondering is there somebody lurking up the path ahead of you, you could zoom it out, and then you can see like 100 yards further down the path more easily. Or you can do what I normally do and have it, kind of half zoomed in, half zoomed out, where you get then a good, medium between seeing up close decently well and actually having the light throw quite well. As you can see, you can have this set to sort of any distance. Now, most flashlights now also have strobe modes on, which is good if you're being attacked, obviously epilepsy warning. If you did that in somebody's face and it's dark, that's really going to stun them. And lots of people laugh at these flashlights saying, oh no, it couldn't do anything, in self-defense. They've obviously not had one shone in their face in the dark. Believe me, if you have a bright enough flashlight and it's shone in your face in the dark, you are not going to be able to see well for like 10 or 20 minutes, at which time the person can run away or, strike back in self-defense. Some flashlights as well could be used as a bludgeoning, tool, if they're well built enough. Also, you get very good brands like Frunite and Olight, which make higher quality flashlights, but you obviously have to pay a bit more. But these things are very good for like the £5 or £6 they currently cost on Amazon or eBay. They're amazingly good for that price. But yeah, obviously there's loads of different flashlight models around. I definitely advise getting a recharger and something that probably takes 18650 batteries, because they're just so much better than the ones that take AA for the most part. But it's like saying zoomable flashlights are really good as well, because you can actually use them proactively if you're walking around somewhere in the dark to check further ahead of you than you could with a conventional flashlight, to see if somebody stood down there. And that's what I do quite often if I'm walking down a dark path at night with my flashlight. Constantly, like every couple of minutes, zoom it out, check the path as I'm walking, and then zoom it back to the thing that's most convenient for seeing ahead and walking at the same time. So there you go. So Weapon Collector's video is good, check it out if you haven't seen it. But the point I wanted to get across in this video is, there's a certain way to use everything. You have both passive and more aggressive types of self-defense, passive being better for definitely not being, arrested for anything, because that's just the stuff like the Kevlar or the hat, where it's going to protect you from impacts and, like attacks, basically. But the actual item itself, can't be used in a way that would hurt somebody. And as said, I always bring up the martial arts thing, because you always get several people say, well, you wouldn't need body armour or anything if you knew Krav Maga or something like that. Well, I definitely think it'd be better knowing it than not knowing it, just like being in the good physical shape is better than not being in good physical shape. However, knowing a martial art is not going to stop somebody knifing you or whatever else. As much as it might give you better ability to fight off somebody with a knife, you should never be putting yourself into a scenario where you're going to be attacked with bladed weapons or whatever else. So, hopefully this video sums it up. And stay safe is the main thing I have to say, really.